In the 70s, nobody thought twice about smoking around children, around each other. There were always people with cigarettes hanging out their mouths or cigarette packs rolled up into their shirt sleeve of their t-shirt. You wouldn't even think twice to say that, oh, smoking is bad for you. The Surgeon General started putting warnings on cigarette packs that smoking was bad for you and could possibly lead to cancer. Well, I didn't smoke, and I didn't think that I would end up telling my children or my family that I actually had lung cancer. That was a huge surprise for me. When I was diagnosed, well, actually, before I was diagnosed, my doctor told me that because every time that I was at the drive-through window at my job, that I would end up having asthma attacks, and I would have to go and actually take my inhaler or breathing treatment. The ambulance would have to come to my job. It was embarrassing for people to see me in that kind of a condition. But the thing of it was, she said, if you want to die at that job, you continue staying at that job. Well, needless to say, I got a new job doing something totally different, no drive-through windows involved. But you can take the drive-through window away, but you can't take the smokers away because a lot of people just, that's their habit. That's what they do. And so I did have some struggles in the beginning, but having lung cancer is a very fast moving thing. Once you get into your appointments with your doctors, they try to get you a CT scan, which is how they diagnose it by looking at the insides of your lungs. They try to get you your walking test to see how your breathing is actually doing as far as being able to maintain your breathing. You get in for your echocardiogram to test your heart and make sure that your heart is strong enough to do surgery. And these were the things that I had to do for stage 1 surgery. I had to do a breathing test to make sure that my lungs were strong enough to handle the surgery. And it was not horrible, but everything was rush, 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 hurry, 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 because they were like, we have to get you in because we don't want this to spread. We don't want it to get worse. We found it at an early stage, and so they're pushing everything. Hey, come on, you got to get here. You got to set this appointment for this surgery. And now I'd only had children. I had never really had any kind of surgery, so I was scared to have surgery, to be honest. I didn't think that this was going to be my life. And, they explain the surgery to you with the stage of cancer that I had at stage 1, just having the small nodule being at 3 centimeters. They took the entire lobe of my lung for my first surgery because that was the safest way to protect you from getting cancer again on down the line, where it actually gets an opportunity to spread and go to your other body parts. Because usually if lung cancer spreads, it goes to your brain, your liver, or your lymph nodes, or it can also go to your bones. And they did not want to chance that on me. And I was taking my time, dragging my feet, because, as I've said previously, I did not have medical coverage yet because I had just started a new job. trying to get out of my other job so that I wouldn't die on that job, as my doctor had so graciously told me that I would end up doing if I stayed there. And, you know, I remember being at the doctor's office, and as I would walk down the hallway, she had a pulse ox on my finger to monitor whether or not I had my oxygen level staying stable, my heart rate staying stable. Every time I took a step, it would drop. And she was terrified for me, but I was like, I had to go back to work. And she said, you can go back to work, but if you go back to work, you have to sit down. You are not permitted to move. Once you get there, you sit down. Once you leave, that's the only time that you are getting up. And that really helped me to understand the urgency in my condition, and that it was not a game. It was not something that I could play with. Now, yes, I did keep trying to push my surgery out as far as I could, but really they try to get you in within 2 weeks, get everything set up, get you in that operating room on that table for that stage 1 surgery, because they really and sincerely are trying to save your life, trying to make sure that you don't have to go through what other people go through as you get on into those stages, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. Now, I did have non-small cell lung cancer, which a lot of people call that non-smokers cancer. Because most people that are diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer have not smoked. The people who typically have smoked, most times they are diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. And then there is another segment of people that are diagnosed with squamous cell lung cancer. And I remember my gynecologist telling me that people can get squamous cell lung cancer from having HPV, the human papilloma virus. So, we don't want to make assumptions, because some people who have squamous cell have never had HPV. But it always stuck in my mind that these were certain things that could happen. And even with the non-smokers, you can get lung cancer from being exposed to radon. And I didn't know about that either. We've always had the carbon monoxide testing in our home plugged in, and, different other testings. But, I had to think back in my life. What was I exposed to? Oh, I used to mix paint. I used to, be around smokers. Most of my boyfriends were smokers. And so things that you've done in your life, you think back on it and you think, it's no way that this is my life. But when you go to that doctor, they're asking you, hey, did you have a family member that may have smoked? Were you raised in a home of smokers? They're trying to get a take on if it's genetically pre-exposed. And so, yes, I was around smokers, a lot of my life, but I was not raised in a house where there were smokers, because my mom never smoked. I didn't smoke. My sister didn't smoke. We were just living life and going to church and, just having a wonderful life. But those were some of the things that I had to think about, as far as having this lung cancer diagnosis. It introduced a lot of things to my world that I just wasn't ready for. They told me that you could have a wedge resection if your cancer's small enough, where they take like a triangle piece out of your lung, or you could have a lobectomy where they take the entire lung lobe. And now on my left side, my entire lung lobe is gone, but on my right side, I had 2 wedge resections. So my lung capacity did suffer because of that. But I am still here to tell the story. So that is the hope that still lies within that patient, And I didn't have any biomarker testing done the first time I ever had lung cancer. I didn't even know that it existed. It was probably still pretty much grassroots in the works of becoming a thing. But after I had my second cancer, people in my lung support group kept telling me, hey, make sure they get your biomarker testing done. Make sure they get your biomarker testing done. Well, I was at one of these hospitals where they actually do that anyway because it was a learning hospital. Now, learning hospitals, I am not so happy about the way that they do things because there's almost always a student trying to learn something or a group of students that want to be able to observe your appointment or your surgery. And you do get to say yes or no, but I'm one of those people that, hey, you ask, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's okay. Even if my mind is saying, no, no way. But so there were some things that I did not like about the second experience of my surgery as opposed to my first experience, where in my first experience, it was not a learning hospital. So it was just the doctor and the people that were already knowledgeable about everything. You know, you probably still do have your students, but it's not where they're asking permission, can this person come into the room to observe on a regular basis. So, I mean, this is a part of my story. And I just was thinking about the fact of how things went in the beginning and the things that they were asking me and the rush of it all. So if you have any questions for me, you can feel free to ask in the comments section, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you like my video, be sure to push the like button, comment, or subscribe if you like to do that. I also do have where you could buy me a coffee if you want to. It's no pressure, but it was something that I saw and I said, hey, that seems pretty cool. So that link is in my description. All right. It's been nice talking to you all again, and I hope that I shed some light on lung cancer that you didn't know before. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Always remember that you are special, and thank you so very much for blessing me once again with your presence. Have a great day or night, and bye-bye.